Here we go. Go.
Okay, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Then we will convene the agenda for Thursday, January 21st, and consider the matter that is scheduled for 1:30. And that is case number, where is it here? It's PL-CUP-20-0004, a request for a conditional use permit. The applicants are Edward Pugh, and the request is for the permit to establish a bed and breakfast for short-term lodging in the lower level of an existing single-family residence located at 3311 Ross Avenue within the city of Gig Harbor. My name is Steve Casso. I'm the City of Gig Harbor Hearings Examiner. I am an attorney in the private practice of law with the firm of McCarthy and Casso that is located at 902 South 10th in Tacoma. So if anyone knows of a reason why I should not hear the matter, please indicate. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and proceed. The way we'll proceed then this afternoon is we will first hear a presentation of the city staff report by Kimberly Mahoney. Following that, we will hear testimony from the applicants. And then following that, we will hear testimony from anyone else that wishes to speak in the matter. And then following conclusion of the hearing this afternoon, I will take the matter under advisement and will issue a written decision. That decision will be transmitted to the city and to the applicant at the Ross Avenue address. And if you need a decision mailed elsewhere, or you're not on the list there, then just advise the staff if you would like to receive a copy and give them your name and address. When it is your turn to testify, please state your name and address and spell your last name so that we have it correct for the record. And then because we're required to take all testimony under oath in these quasi-judicial hearings, I will swear everyone in as a witness when it's your turn to speak. So then, Ms. Mahoney, if you could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case now in hearing shall be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're here today for the hearing examiner's decision on Miss B's bed and breakfast conditional use permit, which is encompassed in permit number PL-CUP-20-0004. The proposed B&B would operate at 3311 Ross Avenue, owned by Edward and Cynthia Pugh. The B&B is proposed to occupy the existing first floor of the single-family residence on site, which is a 650 square foot daylight basement. The B&B would serve short-term lodging for 2 guest rooms. This use is commonly referred to as an Airbnb or a VRBO, but is regarded in the Gig Harbor Municipal Code as lodging level 1 use. Lodging level 1 uses are conditionally permitted in the R1 zoning district to which the site is subject. Consequently, the applicant has prepared a conditional use permit justification letter in support of their request, which is included as Exhibit A to my staff report. The subject parcel is a 0.2 acre lot in the R1 zone and is also located in the city's historic district. The site is surrounded on all sides by the R1 zone and the historic district, and a section of the lot's northeast corner borders the city's downtown business district. The lot slopes down from its access off Ross Avenue toward the northeast corner of the lot and are at an approximate 15% grade. Access to the proposed bed and breakfast will also be provided off Ross Avenue via an existing driveway along the site's shared property line with 3317 Ross Avenue. The shared driveway is the subject of an easement and use agreement that has been entered into by the owners of 3311 and 3317 Ross Avenue, and a copy of this easement has been included with my staff report as Exhibit G. The subject site is not located within any regulated proximity to any critical area, and the proposed activity is exempt from SEPA. All proper noticing was provided for this application and this public hearing. Staff received no comments in response to the notice of public hearing, but received 1 comment in response to the notice of application from the Squaxin Tribe of Indians. The Squaxin Tribe of Indians stated in their comment that if any recommendations were provided from the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, the tribe would concur with such recommendations. However, no such recommendations have been provided by the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation related to this proposal. Staff has analyzed the proposed conditional use permit request for consistency with all relevant provisions of the city's comprehensive plan and municipal code. This analysis is detailed in section 8 of my staff report, which I will briefly summarize now. The proposed use is consistent with the definition of lodging level 1 set forth in Gig Harbor Municipal Code 17.04.444, which means a single family residence which provides overnight lodging for guests and may provide meals for overnight guests not to exceed 5 guest rooms. Lodging level 1 is conditionally allowed in the site's R1 zone, provided that the conditional use permit criteria set forth in Gig Harbor Municipal Code section 17.64.040 is met. The limited size of the proposed B&B aids in maintaining the residential character of the surrounding neighborhood. The bed and breakfast is designed to occupy only 650 square feet of an approximately 2,800 square foot home, the space of which is already developed and requires no interior or exterior improvements or remodels to the site. The proposed bed and breakfast is located and has been designed in a manner which can be served by public facilities and street capacities without placing an undue burden on such facilities if properly conditioned. The Public Works Department has recommended that the hearing examiner consider adopting staff's condition number 2 in section 10 of the staff report to suitably mitigate any impact the proposed bed and breakfast may have on city transportation. The site otherwise provides adequate off-street parking to serve the proposed use and is located less than 500 feet from the nearest public transportation stop. The lot is of sufficient size to accommodate all required site features to serve the proposed use. Considering this analysis, staff recommends the hearing examiner conditionally approve the proposed conditional use permit for Miss B's bed and breakfast. Should the examiner decide to approve the CUP, staff recommends the imposition of the conditions outlined in section 10 of my staff report. This concludes my brief of the project. I'm happy to address any questions you may have, Mr. Examiner.
I am assuming, that I didn't see anything in your staff report that would just discuss any specific requirements for B&Bs or Airbnb type, VBRO type rentals. So the city basically just uses a conditional use permit process when those types of applications are submitted.
That's correct, Mr. Examiner. I know that you're familiar with our process. It's a little bit different for accessory apartments or ADUs, but we do not have a process similar to that for Airbnbs or these types of uses. They're just regarded as a standard conditional use permit for lodging level 1 use.
Okay, all right, thank you. Then we will now hear testimony from the applicant and those that wish to speak in favor of the request. Mr. and Mrs. Pugh, which one of you wishes to testify, or do you both want to speak?
I'll probably be doing the speaking and she'll probably be doing the punching me.
Oh, okay. You want to raise your right hand then. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case now in hearing shall be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead and state your name for us and then go ahead and proceed with your testimony.
Yeah, my name is Edward Pugh, and this is my wife, Cynthia Pugh, EDWARD, and her name is spelled Cynthia, CYNTHIA. And the last name is Pugh, PUGH. I just put a brief outline, and I think it's wonderful to have the opportunity to see, particularly the planning department face to face, and particularly to have some legal expertise in regards to what we're doing. I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time. We are applying for the lodging level 1, but I would like to shed some light on where we fit into lodging level 1, because I think it does have some legal implications, not so much for us, but for the city of Gig Harbor, in our opinion. First of all, while we're in the B&B business, we started as a hobby. We enjoy the hospitality. The space is really used on a part-time basis. Our occupancy over the course of the last year has been around 60%. And most of the time we have a single vehicle using what, was originally designed as 2 bedrooms for our 2 children that lived here at the time. We love Gig Harbor. We support downtown Gig Harbor and the businesses that are there. And we try to promote that downtown business through the Airbnb process. We've had a direct impact. We're up and operating as an Airbnb and sort of backtracking to get the necessary permits to do what we're doing. While it's not particularly important from the legal standpoint, I would, as a result of the planning department having a lot of impact on what the city does, I would like to state for the record that we know how our guests who have frequented, continue to frequent our Airbnb over the course of the COVID issue. And we can sort of see where they spend their money because we haul their trash to the curb, and we can see what they're eating and basically how they're sustaining our downtown businesses. So that's why we are sort of in the B&B. The scope and how it's done in Gig Harbor, I think, is particular important to the legal aspect and what we would like to see the city of Gig Harbor do. First of all, correct, and Kimberly's correct, most short-term rentals, which are effectively lodging level 1 because they are in residential areas. And you can sample those in downtown Gig Harbor by Googling ours, Miss B's Gig Harbor, and it'll link you to a number of different sites that are effectively doing the same thing that we're doing. They're renting short-term lodging level 1, less 1 night, normally not providing meals though. The platforms that are there, and in this case, as Kimberly pointed out, VRBO and Airbnb pay state and municipal taxes. They collect those from the Airbnb hosts. So technically speaking, those taxes are being paid and distributed appropriately. There's no involvement by the Airbnb operators, and therefore the operators normally don't need to register with the Department of Revenue in the state of Washington. In our case, we started out this process as having a concierge service, Abigail's concierge, in fact, who managed the property for us. We declared the income. Abigail's collected the revenue, paid the appropriate taxes to the state of Washington, but there was no direct influence by Abigail or anything that would alert the city or the state that Abigail was dealing in short-term rentals, lodging level 1 within the city of Gig Harbor. We spent a year doing the concierge service, decided we were going to go and do it ourselves because we could do it more effectively. And we sort of mirrored the process that Abigail's had. We went to the Department of Revenue. We filed a business license. The business license that are collected at the Department of Revenue notified the city of Gig Harbor. The city of Gig Harbor says, you're conducting business in a residential area, and we started the conditional use process, conditional use permit process. Now, most jurisdictions, as a result of our trying to find the proper course, do have a policy and a procedure for handling bed and breakfast. It's what I would consider to be effective, coordinated, reasonably priced, fair, and well run. In fact, Pierce County has just that kind of process, but they obviously sort of refer to the city of Gig Harbor, since the city of Gig Harbor does they're responsible for the business within the city. Gig Harbor does not have a process or procedure to handle or address bed and breakfast issues when it comes to conditional use permits. And I think, effectively, really what we're dealing with is, in our complaint to some degree, at this point, is lodging level 1 versus Airbnb, which is a fairly new platform that is doing business, everywhere in the United States. So just to describe, we were doing other Airbnbs in the city of Gig Harbor, and there are probably, this morning, there are 60 that have availability, probably a large number of them within the city of Gig Harbor that haven't done it. They don't have a conditional use permit. At least I'm not aware of that, or I'm not aware of anybody else applying. We did, because we're trying to do this the correct way and pay taxes for any income that comes to us outside of those platforms. So the process to date for us has been a 14-month process. And really what we're getting based on the stipulations of conditional use permits is a 3-year opportunity to run a lodging level 1 within the city of Gig Harbor. The summary of funds expended to this point were survey fee to make it professional, as it was sort of described. And that was a redraw of all of our surveys so that we could point out the 5 required parking spaces that were 11 by 8 and have them appropriately surveyed on the map. We had a building fire review, the conditional use permit fees, the hearing examiner and legal deposits, and the soon to be assessed $5,020 traffic impact fee, totaling for this process $9,882 for us to have a conditional use permit, which will last for 3 years. Particularly, I think, and would like to state for the record that I think the engineering fee of $5,020 for a conditional use permit for a 60% occupied 2-bedroom house with 1 car during that 60% is a little onerous and has caused us to sort of decide whether we're going to fully engage in a lodging level 1 or whether we're still debating how we're going to end up handling it. It's just the cost benefit analysis just does not seem to be there. In longer term rentals where we don't have to pay taxes might be the best option. And in fact, the only option for us. So I won't go into that, but I just, I'd be happy to let you know more if you're at all interested in basically how we came to apply and what we're considering regarding the CUP decision, whatever that happens to be when the staff issues its ruling. But I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank you for being here. It's wonderful seeing you. And I know the city wants to do the right thing, and we've gone through processes in downtown Gig Harbor constructing our house, and we're all in on Gig Harbor and we want the best. And I'm not sure the conditional use permit's the best for dealing with bed and breakfast in Gig Harbor. So thank you, sir, for taking the time and listening to our testimony.
Mr. Pugh, I just had one question for you. I was looking through the exhibits that the city provided, and I noticed that you have an easement, that's recorded with your neighbors. And I noticed also that the easement is dated 2002. So I'm assuming that was, well before you applied for the permit, or maybe even were using your house for a B&B. And I just wondered if there was any issue with with the easement. Did it have to be amended, or does it have to be amended or anything like that to accommodate the new use of your home, the downstairs of your home there?
No, it doesn't require that. It was originally, the way it came about is there were 3 lots, and we were able to purchase the lot between our residence and the other reference that Kimberly, I think it's 3317 Ross Avenue. We did a lot line adjustment with the city of Gig Harbor to try to preserve the view corridor, which was an emphasis item from the streets in Gig Harbor. And then we drew the driveway so that it looked a little more appealing, having a curve to it rather than just sort of slamming a driveway on a particular property line. And so we gave each other easements. The parking that does occur singularly on the 3311 Ross property. And we just share the top part of the driveway that goes down the property line with Smith's next door, but it does not have to be amended.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in this matter? Ms. Mahoney, do you have anything further?
Yes, Mr. Examiner, I do want to address, there's, I think, an unfortunate misunderstanding from the applicants in this 3-year timeline. And I think that that probably comes from one of the curtailed sections of my staff report that discusses duration of permit approval. Mr. Pugh, just to let you know, your CUP is not active and valid for only 3 years. If it's approved by the hearing examiner, it's valid and approved for perpetuity of your use of the site, so long as the conditional use is consistent with what has been proposed and approved. If approved by the examiner, then it is valid, and you're able to use your site as you've described it, forever. What you're reading is the expiration if you were not to actually take advantage of the approved permit. So,
Oh,
a lot of times we see this when it comes more to development or construction. If construction doesn't commence within the duration of the permit approval timeline, then that, those approvals are then expired and need to be, the permits need to be applied for again, and the process needs to be undergone again. But it doesn't mean that you have to stop operating Miss B's B&B if it's approved by the hearing examiner. It doesn't mean that you have to stop operating it in 3 years.
okay, that is very helpful, certainly.
Good.
I guess the one question, I know that, in our search for how we're supposed to conduct business in Gig Harbor, I know that in discussion with city council members, the Airbnb is being addressed by municipalities throughout the United States. It's a challenge for them. If we are operating under lodging level 1 and we're operating on the Airbnb platform, if the city of Gig Harbor comes out and says, oh, we want to regulate and control and know what's going on the Airbnb, VRBO, or other platforms, will we be required to meet all of those requirements, or will we still fall under the lodging level 1 that we've applied for?
You would be, Mr. Examiner, do you mind if I address
No,
that?
go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Your site would continue to be regulated and regarded under the codes which were in place at the time of your approvals, if it's approved.
So for the layperson, like me and Cindy, the answer is we apply under lodging level 1. If we're approved under lodging level 1, that's where we'll stay for perpetuity.
Right. Yeah, this dives into what would then become, if something were to change, your site, your use would then become what's referred to as an existing legal nonconformity. It'd be like if you built your house and your house at the time had a 8-foot setback from the front yard or something, right? And then let's say that the codes changed and now your front yard setback is 20 feet. Well, we're not going to bulldoze your house and make you push it back 12 feet. Because the rules changed. You'd be an existing, if it was legally established, it'd be an existing legal nonconformity, and you'd be, protected by that right.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I really appreciate you clarifying that.
Sure. Mr. Examiner, I had one other, during my testimony, I had one other item that I wanted to address on the record.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to address that in Mr. Pugh's testimony, he mentioned a transportation impact fee of $5,020 that is being imposed by the Public Works Department. It's actually $5,071. That's reflected in my staff report. And that cost is it's based on a, let's see, I guess it's just based off of a pretty firm calculation that's engineered out of the Public Works Department. This is not our first time discussing this with Mr. Pugh. He has made his position on the appropriateness of the cost very clear. We have involved all the way up to the city engineer on whether the fee should be imposed, and the Public Works Department is very firm that the fee is appropriate for to mitigate any sort of transportation impacts that may be resultant of the B&B use. I
just wanted to clarify one thing too that Mr. Pugh had raised. And that is, if it's my understanding, and maybe you could clarify this, that if the Pews were to sell their property, that the conditional use permit would run with the land. In other words, whoever bought the property would also be able to use the conditional use permit, the level 1 lodging following purchase. Or are you not sure?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's a question to me?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I just wanted to get clarification on that, whether the city would consider that. In other words, if you have a, if they have a valid level 1 lodging
Mhm.
conditional use permit, and they sold the property, then would that permit then go with the land? In other words, it wouldn't terminate with their sale of the property.
I'm unsure.
You're not
Okay.
sure?
Yeah, I'm unsure, but I can find
Okay.
out.
Okay, all right.
And that would be one, and we hadn't thought of that question. Obviously, we're not attorneys here, but including that in the staff report would certainly be helpful to us because, we have children that might be caring for us, when we're here and would like to have that opportunity as well. That's a very good question. I really appreciate you asking that.
Maybe you could clarify that with the city attorney. Just ask that.
I was going to suggest the exact same thing, Mr. Examiner. I can follow up with the city attorney to be able to verify whether approved conditional use permits run with the land rather than with the owner. And if the applicant is amenable to it, then I'm comfortable with being able to look into that information and provide that to them separate of a decision of this hearing request.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything further that they want to add? Or does anyone else that hasn't spoken wish to speak? Okay, well, before we close, Mr. Pugh, you sound like you come from my area of the country. Where your accent gives you away. I recognize it very clearly. Where are you
I
from?
sort of recognize yours as well. But I didn't want them to think I had an in with the Examiner.
There's not enough of us up here to start anything. So
That's true.
So where are you from?
We were raised in right along the West Virginia border and school in South Carolina.
Oh, okay. Well, I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, so we're not too far away.
Yeah, I was almost a member of the Big Orange Country, but just barely escaped that.
Yeah, well, they're going through some tough times right now with their football program. Anyway, okay.
Mr. Examiner, the only thing that I wanted to add, I can see that we have one attendee who's not a panelist, and this because this session, this Zoom format is so new to us, I just want to state very clearly for the record that if the attendee wishes to speak or provide any testimony, please use the raise your hand function that is a part of the Zoom platform, and then the examiner will know to invite your testimony.
Okay, well, not seeing any raised hands, then I will go ahead and take the matter under advisement and close the record because we'll get the question regarding the conditional use permit running with the land separate and apart from this hearing. And so anyone else that's present that wants to receive a copy of the decision or be made a party of record if something else comes up, just let staff know before you sign off, and we'll make sure that happens. So thank you very much for coming this afternoon then, and we are now adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, everyone.
Cindy, Kim, and Amy, thank you again for just holding our hands through this process. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You do the same.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Cindy, you gonna stop that recording?
Yep.